All right, welcome back to the deep dive. This time, we're diving into something a lot of you have been asking about, African Americans returning to Ghana,
Yeah.
especially with all this talk about the government calling for diaspora investment. We've got a pretty interesting YouTube video essay from O'Shea Duke Jackson. He lays out some, I don't know, pretty harsh realities about going back.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's
Yeah.
like a whole comment section buzzing with all sorts of different opinions about the idea. So
Yeah. Should be good.
let's unpack all this.
Okay.
Good. You know, it's wild how Ghana's Year of Return initiative, inviting the diaspora back, ended up sparking all these similar programs across, like, the whole continent.
That's crazy.
I mean, it really shows you how much people all over are yearning for that reconnection.
Totally. Though it's funny, because our main source this time, O'Shea Duke Jackson,
Yeah.
he's actually based in Uganda, not Ghana.
Right.
He hasn't actually lived there himself.
Okay.
But he's bringing insights from his time in Africa.
And he's talked to a bunch of Ghanaians in the diaspora.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's got a pretty interesting angle.
I mean, what I find refreshing is his commitment to, pragmatic Pan-Africanism.
Yeah.
He's not out there selling some, unrealistic dream.
Right.
He's really urging people who might want to go back to, actually confront the challenges head on.
He's keeping it real.
Yeah, exactly. And in his video, he actually lays out, 6 major challenges.
Oh, wow.
Anyone thinking about making this move really needs to consider,
Okay.
before they pack their bags.
Let's hear him.
All right, well, the first one is a real gut punch. O'Shea really highlights how returnees, despite, their ancestral ties, might actually be perceived as foreigners
Really?
by the locals.
Uh-huh.
Even, he uses this phrase, white on the inside.
Oh, that's rough.
It is. It's imagine seeking a sense of belonging in the very place you're told you should belong, only to be treated like an outsider, And it really gets to the heart of how complex identity and belonging can be,
All right.
especially for those who've been disconnected from their ancestral homelands for, generations.
Absolutely. It's a lot more layered than just,
Oh, yeah,
simply going back.
for sure.
And this kind of ties into O'Shea's second challenge, which is the potential weakness of institutions in Ghana compared to Western countries. And he argues that this can pose, real risks for investors.
Yeah. You got to think about it. Institutions are the bedrock of trust in any society.
Totally.
If you're coming from a place with, strong property rights, reliable contract enforcement, a transparent legal system,
Yeah.
navigating a different environment can be, incredibly difficult and risky, financially risky.
For sure. And he uses this really stark example where he says, in Ghana, you might be able to, talk your way out of a DUI. Whereas in America, the consequences would be much stricter, regardless of who you are.
Yeah. You see, so what's interesting there is how that simple example, it exposes this fundamental difference in, cultural norms.
Oh, yeah.
Around accountability and rule of law, What might be considered a get-out-of-jail-free card in one context could be seen as, undermining the whole system in another.
That's a good point.
And that difference in perspective has some, significant implications for diaspora investors looking for stability and transparency.
So it's not just about, understanding the written laws, but also the unwritten rules, those unspoken understandings that really shape how things actually work.
Exactly. And that kind of leads us to O'Shea's third challenge, which builds on this idea of differing expectations. He talks about this kind of pervasive lack of accountability in Ghana, where, unreliability and broken promises, they're actually pretty common, even in business dealings, which is, it's something to think about.
This makes me wonder, could this difficulty enforcing agreements stem partly from those differing cultural norms you mentioned?
Oh, absolutely.
It's possible that what's perceived as a firm commitment in one culture might be interpreted differently in another, right?
Yeah. What might be a binding contract in a Western context might just be seen as, a starting point for negotiation in another culture.
I see.
And it's those subtle, unspoken differences that often lead to misunderstandings and frustration.
Totally.
Especially in business.
So navigating those cultural nuances is just as important as understanding the legal framework. It's there's this whole other layer of cultural intelligence needed to successfully operate in Ghana.
You got it. And this brings us to O'Shea's fourth challenge, which might be the most sensitive one.
Okay.
It's a deep-seated distrust many Ghanaians, including those in the diaspora, have towards the government.
He doesn't really delve into the reasons behind this distrust, but I'm
Yeah.
curious, from your expertise, like what historical or systemic factors might contribute to this sentiment?
Right.
Especially when the government's like actively courting diaspora investment.
Well, it's complex.
Yeah.
It's rooted in a long history of broken promises and unmet expectations, you know?
Right.
A lot of post-colonial African nations have experienced, periods of corruption, political instability, economic policies
Yeah.
that haven't really benefited the average citizen,
Right.
and this legacy of, disappointment.
Yeah.
It can breed cynicism and distrust, even towards, well-intentioned initiatives.
So while a government might be genuinely trying to attract investment and foster development,
Right.
there's this historical baggage they need to overcome.
Yeah, exactly. And this distrust, it creates this vicious cycle.
Oh, wow.
It discourages investment, hinders economic progress,
Oh, I see.
further fuels that perception that the government just can't be trusted.
So it's a significant barrier
Absolutely.
that Ghana needs to address if it wants to create a truly welcoming environment for diaspora investors.
It's true.
It sounds like building trust is essential, and that goes beyond just words.
For sure.
It requires consistent action, demonstrable results.
You said it. Actions speak louder than words, especially when you're trying to heal old wounds and build new relationships based on, mutual benefit.
Yeah, I like that.
And that brings us to O'Shea's fifth challenge, which is about the unique complexities of doing business in Ghana.
Okay.
Okay? He cautions against simply replicating Western business models
Okay.
because they often fail. The underlying assumptions just don't translate to the Ghanaian context.
Right.
It's a crucial point.
Right.
What works in a Western market might not work in Ghana.
Right.
The economic landscape is different, the cultural norms are different, and the regulatory environment can be really challenging to navigate.
Yeah.
He emphasizes the need for adaptability, innovation,
Yeah.
deep understanding of the local market dynamics.
He shares this example. It's crazy. Someone being advised to pay employees $150 a month
Whoa.
when the cost of living is much higher.
Yeah, that's it.
It really underscores the danger of relying on outdated or out-of-touch advice,
Sure.
especially when it comes to something as sensitive as wages.
It highlights the need for, due diligence
Yeah,
and critical thinking. Even advice that seems well-intentioned might be based on outdated information.
Right.
Or a limited understanding of the current realities on the ground.
So it's not enough to simply have good intentions.
Yeah.
You need to couple that with careful research, local knowledge, and a willingness to learn and adapt your approach.
Exactly. And this brings us to O'Shea's final and maybe the most thought-provoking challenge.
Okay.
He points out that while the government's, really encouraging diaspora investment,
Right.
there might be a lack of support systems in place to help returnees navigate the very complexities we've been talking about.
So it sounds like there's a disconnect between the rhetoric of welcoming the diaspora back and the reality on the ground, where returnees might be left to sink or swim on their own.
You could say that. He draws this powerful comparison to his own experience attending medical school in Poland.
Really?
Yeah, the university had really robust support systems, from language tutoring to cultural integration programs.
Wow.
Specifically designed to help foreign students succeed.
Interesting.
He suggests that African governments could learn from this model,
Okay.
going beyond simply inviting people back and actually equipping them to thrive.
So it's not just about opening the door, it's about providing the tools and resources to help people walk through it successfully.
That's it.
It seems like there's this real tension here between individual responsibility and the role of government.
Yeah.
How much should individuals be expected to figure out on their own?
Yeah.
And how much support is reasonable to expect from the government?
It's a valid question, and one that sparks a lot of debate.
Sure.
Some people argue that returnees should be self-sufficient,
Yeah.
resourceful, able to navigate challenges independently.
Right.
Others believe that the government has a responsibility to provide more structured support,
Right.
especially given, the historical context we've been discussing.
And this debate is further complicated by the fact that
Right.
everyone's situation is different.
Absolutely.
Some returnees might have significant resources, networks to tap into,
For sure.
while others might be starting from scratch.
Absolutely. There's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Right.
But what's clear is that a more nuanced conversation needs to happen.
Yeah.
One that acknowledges, the complexities of this return journey and considers a range of perspectives on what successful reintegration actually looks like.
Before we dive into the comment section, which brings even more voices to the table, I want to pause and ask you, what's standing out to you so far from O'Shea's analysis?
Honestly, I think what strikes me is how he balances the emotional allure of going back with this sobering dose of reality.
Yeah.
He's not saying don't do it, but he's urging potential returnees to approach this decision with clear eyes.
Right.
You know, understand both the potential rewards and the very real challenges.
Yeah.
It's about tempering idealism with pragmatism, you know?
And that seems particularly important, I think, given the emotional weight of this topic.
Oh, yeah.
For many African Americans, returning to Africa is about reclaiming a lost heritage, connecting with their roots, fulfilling this deep yearning for belonging.
Totally.
But if those expectations are built on fantasy, disillusionment is almost inevitable.
Absolutely. And that's where the comment section becomes so valuable, you know?
Yeah.
It gives us a glimpse into the diverse range of experiences and perspectives on this complex issue.
Yeah.
So it provides a much richer and more nuanced understanding.
All right, so we've heard O'Shea's perspective. Now let's jump into the comments.
Let's do it.
See what other voices have to say about this multifaceted journey.
The comments really bring this whole conversation to life, you know?
One of the first things that jumps out is this thread of comments expressing skepticism about Ghana's motives.
Right.
Some viewers feel like this call for diaspora investment might be more about exploiting resources than genuinely supporting returnees.
Yeah, it's a valid concern, especially given the history of exploitation Africa has faced.
Yeah.
Anytime there's a significant power imbalance, there's potential for abuse.
Yeah.
And some people are, understandably wary of repeating past mistakes.
So this skepticism could be rooted in, a historical trauma.
Yeah.
And a fear of being taken advantage of.
Exactly. And it highlights the need for transparency and accountability on the part of the Ghanaian government. They need to demonstrate through concrete actions that this initiative is truly mutually beneficial, not just a way to extract resources from the diaspora.
But it's not all doom and gloom in the comments. There are counter-arguments, too.
Yeah, of course.
Some viewers point out that many foreigners, not just African Americans, have found success in Ghana if they adapt to the local context.
This really highlights the importance of personal agency and a willingness to embrace the challenges.
Yeah.
It's not about expecting Ghana to conform to Western norms, but about adapting and integrating into a different, cultural and economic environment.
It's a good reminder that success, whether in Ghana or anywhere else, often requires flexibility, resilience, and a willingness to learn and grow.
Exactly. And it also underscores the importance of recognizing that this isn't a monolithic experience.
Right.
Individual experiences will vary greatly depending on factors like personal skills, resources, networks, even luck.
It's about recognizing that there's no single narrative or guaranteed outcome.
Right.
It's a complex journey with multiple paths and diverse outcomes.
And that complexity is further highlighted by the fact that O'Shea's perspective, while valuable, it's based on observation, not personal experience living in Ghana.
Right.
Several commenters point this out, reminding us to consider the source and potential biases or limitations.
Which is important to keep in mind.
Yeah.
O'Shea acknowledges this himself, making it clear he's not claiming to be the ultimate authority on Ghana.
Right. That honesty adds to his credibility.
Yeah.
He's offering his insights based on his broader experience in Africa, conversations with those who have returned, but he's also encouraging viewers to seek out other voices and experiences.
Which is what we're doing right now by diving into these comments.
Exactly.
Another theme that emerges is the idea that subsequent generations might actually benefit most from the return to Africa.
Ooh, this is where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
It shifts the focus from immediate gratification to a longer-term vision. It suggests that the first generation might face more challenges, paving the way for their children and grandchildren to truly thrive.
The long game, requiring patience, perseverance, a willingness to invest in a future you might not personally experience.
Exactly. And that level of commitment isn't for everyone. You know, it requires a deep sense of purpose, a belief in something larger than oneself, a willingness to embrace delayed gratification.
But amidst the challenges and uncertainties, we also see these glimmers of hope.
Yeah.
there are comments highlighting successful business ventures in Ghana, proving that it is possible to navigate the complexities and create thriving enterprises.
These examples are crucial because they provide concrete evidence that it's not impossible to succeed in this environment.
Right.
It takes strategic planning, adaptability,
Yeah.
cultural intelligence, and yes, a bit of luck,
Sure.
but it's achievable.
And those who succeed seem to share certain traits. They're resilient, resourceful,
Yep.
adaptable, and they deeply understand the local market dynamics.
Right, they've found ways to leverage opportunities while mitigating risks.
Precisely. They've figured out how to work within the system, even when the system might not always be ideal.
Yeah.
And that brings up another point raised in the comments. The comparison to other immigrant communities,
Okay.
like the Chinese, Indian, and Lebanese, who are perceived as having found success in Africa.
This comparison raises some, thorny questions.
It does.
Like, why are some groups seen as more successful than others?
Right.
Is it due to cultural differences, access to resources, historical advantages,
Yeah.
or perhaps, unconscious biases within Ghanaian society?
It's a sensitive topic,
It is.
but one that needs to be addressed if we want to create a more equitable and inclusive environment for all those seeking to build a life in Ghana.
Absolutely.
It's about examining our own assumptions and biases and challenging any narratives that perpetuate inequality. So from skepticism about motives to inspiring examples of success, the comments section really adds depth and nuance to this exploration of African Americans returning to Ghana.
It's like a microcosm of the larger diaspora experience, filled with hope, challenges,
Yeah.
and a constant negotiation of identity and belonging.
And it reminds us that there's no single narrative or easy answer.
Right.
Each individual's journey is unique, shaped by their own motivations, experiences, and choices.
Exactly. And that's what makes this topic so captivating and worthy of, deeper exploration.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to turn it back to you, the listener. What's resonating with you most from this conversation so far?
Take a moment to reflect.
Yeah.
What's sparking your curiosity? What new insights have you gained? And what questions are, lingering in your mind?
Because the journey of understanding doesn't end with this episode.
Right.
It continues in your own reflections, your own research, your own conversations.
We encourage you to keep exploring, keep questioning, keep diving deep.
That's what the deep dive is all about.
That's it. It's what's really interesting is this tension that comes up in the comments between individual effort
Yeah.
and systemic issues.
Right.
It's two sides of the same coin.
You're right. There's this idea from some folks that, if other immigrant groups can make it in Ghana,
Yeah.
African Americans should be able to as well.
Right.
But then others push back. They highlight the historical context and the unique challenges that the Black diaspora faces. It's it's not a level playing field.
Exactly. Personal resilience is key, but we can't ignore the systemic factors at play,
Totally.
Things like access to capital, reliable networks, even unconscious biases within, Ghanaian society.
Yeah.
All of those impact a person's likelihood of success.
That circles back to what O'Shea was saying about the government's role, is simply encouraging investment enough?
Right.
Or should there be more concrete support to help returnees overcome these systemic barriers?
Right.
And what would that even look like?
That's the million-dollar question.
I know.
And the comments, they reflect that struggle.
Yeah.
Some people advocate for a hands-off approach.
Right.
Just letting individuals rise or fall on their own merit.
Yeah.
Others are calling for targeted programs, mentorship, even legal reforms.
Oh, wow.
Specifically to protect diaspora investors.
It's where do you draw the line between support and self-reliance?
It's tough.
It's a debate that goes, I think, beyond Ghana. It reflects larger ideological differences about what role governments should play
Yeah.
in any society,
Yeah.
especially when you're trying to right historical wrongs.
And there are no easy answers.
No.
But it's a conversation that needs to happen.
Yeah.
And it has to include diverse voices from both the diaspora and the African nations involved.
Reading through these comments, it's clear that this isn't just a logistical or economic decision. There's this deep emotional undercurrent to the whole idea of returning.
Totally. It's about identity, belonging, that longing to reconnect with heritage that was, forcibly severed.
And that pull of heritage can be so powerful.
Oh, incredible.
For some, it's the driving force behind their decision.
I get it.
But as O'Shea points out, balancing that emotional drive with a dose of pragmatism
Yes.
is crucial.
You got it.
If you're expecting this like fairy tale homecoming,
Right.
disappointment is almost guaranteed.
For sure.
There's one comment that really stuck with me.
Yeah.
It talked about the need to like heal when returning to the continent. It's not just about physically being there, it's a process of coming to terms with the past,
Oh, I see.
both personal and collective,
Right, yeah.
and finding a way to like move forward
Yeah.
in a positive direction.
That's such a profound way to put it.
It's true.
It speaks to the potential for transformation
Yeah.
that this kind of like repatriation holds, you know? It's about redefining what it means to be like African in a globalized world
Right.
on your own terms.
And that journey isn't always pretty.
No.
I mean, we see that reflected in the comments too.
Yeah.
There's like excitement and hope for sure, but also frustration, anger, even betrayal
Right.
when reality clashes with expectations.
It's like peeling back layers of history.
Yeah.
Both beautiful and painful.
Yeah.
It can be disorienting, especially for those who grew up, disconnected from the realities of Africa.
One commenter even said, they just want ass chess,
Oh, wow.
implying that, Ghana's exploited the diaspora for financial gain.
I mean, that cynicism is understandable, given the history,
Yeah.
but it's also important to acknowledge that there are genuine efforts
Right.
to build, mutually beneficial relationships to create opportunities for diaspora investors and local communities.
It's about finding that balance, right? Recognizing the potential for exploitation,
Yeah.
while also being open to the possibility of genuine collaboration and growth.
Right.
It takes nuance.
Exactly. It requires critical thinking, the ability to hold seemingly contradictory ideas in your mind at the same time.
Yeah.
We can't fall into simplistic narratives.
We've explored O'Shea's 6 challenges and all these diverse viewpoints in the comments.
Yeah.
Is there anything else from these sources that jumps out at you? Anything we haven't touched on yet?
One thing that fascinates me is this tension between short-term expectations and long-term vision.
Okay.
A lot of the comments focus on immediate success.
Yeah.
Can I make money here? Will I be accepted?
Right.
But others are thinking generations ahead. They see this return as laying foundations for a better future, even if they don't personally reap all the benefits.
That's a powerful distinction.
It is.
Speaks to the different motivations behind repatriation.
Yeah.
Some seek personal fulfillment, while others are driven by a sense of collective responsibility.
Ah,
Almost like a mission.
exactly. And those motivations will impact, how they approach challenges and define success.
Right.
For some, profit might be the primary goal.
Yeah.
For others, it might be about, contributing to their ancestral community, raising their children in a different environment,
Right.
or simply feeling a deeper connection to their heritage.
It's almost like there are levels of return happening simultaneously. There's the physical return of moving to Ghana.
Yeah.
There's the economic return, seeking investment opportunities.
Right.
And then there's this deeper, less tangible return, a search for identity and belonging.
Yeah.
They're all intertwined.
Beautifully put. And those levels, they can intersect,
Yeah.
complement, even conflict with each other.
It's true.
It's a dynamic process, constantly evolving.
And it's all happening in real time in
Yeah.
the lives of individuals, making difficult choices, taking risks, trying to build something meaningful.
Which is why understanding the complexities is so vital.
Right.
We need to engage in these conversations with empathy and nuance, recognizing there's no single right way to, go back.
Yeah.
It's a journey with many paths and destinations.
And as we've seen from these sources, it's a journey filled with both challenges and the immense possibilities.
Absolutely. The more informed we are, the better we can navigate both.
As we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Yeah.
we want to turn it over to you, the listener.
Yeah.
What's resonating with you most from this exploration?
Take a moment to reflect on what stood out to you.
Yeah.
Is it the weight of history, the practical considerations of investment, or maybe the inspiring stories of resilience and adaptation?
Because the journey of understanding doesn't stop with this episode.
Right.
It continues in your own reflections, your own research, your own conversations.
We encourage you to keep exploring, keep questioning, keep diving deep.
That's what the deep dive is all about.
Yeah.
As we've been unpacking this whole idea of returning to Ghana,
Yeah.
there's this one concept that keeps popping up in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it hasn't been directly addressed, in the video or the comments.
Okay, what's that?
Responsibility. Specifically, like, where does the responsibility lie to make this return successful?
That's a really insightful observation. I see what you mean.
Yeah.
There's a tendency in some of the comments to place the burden of responsibility solely on like either Ghana or the diaspora.
Exactly. Some people say Ghana needs to like get its act together, eliminate corruption, create better systems.
Right.
Almost like it has to prove itself worthy
Yeah.
before the diaspora will invest.
Right. And on the other hand, there's this expectation that African Americans should just like show up, money in hand,
Right.
ready to fix everything.
Like some kind of savior complex,
Yeah.
you know? Without acknowledging the agency and existing successes of like Ghanaians themselves.
Right.
Both of those perspectives feel, I don't know, kind of problematic to me.
Yeah, I agree.
They oversimplify a very complex situation
Definitely.
and create this dynamic of like blame rather than collaboration.
It doesn't feel productive.
Not at all.
So how do we think about responsibility in a more nuanced way?
Right.
A way that honors both the historical context and the need for shared progress.
That's the question, isn't it?
I believe it's about shared responsibility.
Okay.
Ghana does have a responsibility to create a more welcoming and supportive environment for returnees,
Yeah.
to tackle corruption, strengthen its institutions. Like that's not up for debate.
But it's not solely their burden to bear, right?
No, exactly.
The diaspora also has a responsibility to like come prepared,
Yeah.
to do their due diligence,
Right.
engage with humility, be willing to learn and adapt.
It's not about
Yeah.
it's not about imposing like Western solutions or expecting a red carpet treatment.
Yeah. It's about meeting each other halfway,
Mm.
recognizing each other's strengths, acknowledging past wrongs,
Yeah.
and building something new together.
It takes effort from both sides.
It does.
It requires open communication, transparency, a willingness to admit when we don't have all the answers.
Totally.
It's about building a relationship based on like mutual respect and understanding.
Yeah.
Not just like a transactional exchange.
Thinking about this whole conversation about returning to Ghana, it strikes me that it's actually like
Yeah.
a microcosm of a much larger conversation happening, globally
Mm-hmm.
in an increasingly interconnected world. How do we navigate cultural differences,
Yeah.
power imbalances, and, the legacies of colonialism?
Right.
How do we build bridges instead of walls?
That's such a powerful insight, and it's a conversation we desperately need to be having.
Yes.
Not just within like the Pan-African community, but like on a global scale.
Yeah.
These issues aren't unique to Ghana.
Exactly.
They're playing out everywhere. As people migrate, cultures mix.
Right.
We're all trying to figure out what our like shared future looks like.
And the answers aren't simple.
No.
But I think this deep dive has
Yeah.
given us, and hopefully you, the listener, some valuable tools
Mm.
to approach these questions with, a bit more nuance and empathy.
I think so.
We've learned about balancing, the allure of going back with
Yeah.
the realistic expectations.
Yeah.
We talked about the vital role of strong institutions
Right.
and those subtle but powerful influences of cultural norms.
For sure.
We've seen how essential adaptability and resilience
Yeah.
are, no matter where you are in the world.
That's true.
And perhaps most importantly, I think we've seen the power of diverse perspectives,
Yeah.
hearing from, skeptics and idealists, those who've returned and those who are still contemplating the journey.
It's through those diverse voices that we gain a more complete understanding, right? Of such complex issues. And ultimately, that's what the deep dive is all about, equipping you, the listener, with the knowledge and insights to navigate a complicated world,
Yeah.
form your own informed opinions, engage in meaningful conversations.
So as we wrap up this exploration of African Americans returning to Ghana, we'll leave you with one final thought to ponder.
Okay.
What does return mean to you? Is it a physical journey,
Yeah.
a cultural reawakening,
Right.
an economic opportunity, or something else entirely?
There's no right or wrong answer.
No.
But by asking ourselves these questions, grappling with these complexities,
Yeah.
engaging in thoughtful dialogue, we can begin to create a more just and equitable world.
I love that.
A world where return is not just a concept, but a lived reality,
Yeah.
full of possibilities and hope.
Remember, the conversation doesn't end here. Keep exploring, keep learning, keep diving deep.
That's what the deep dive is all about.
That's it for this deep dive.